back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. Happy to be back and doing another show. Been fighting with lots of technical issues here, and big, gigantic thanks goes out to Montana Bigfoot Project research team member El Jeffy, who knows way more about technical stuff than I do and has been doing his utmost, and I mean he's spent dozens of hours helping me fight with these two piles of smoking wreckage that others might call computers, one of which is still going to be and continue to be a pile of smoking wreckage. The other one is actually working right now and recording the show, so yay. Thank you, Jeff. All you guys owe Jeff a thanks for the show. And also, I'd like to let you guys get a little bit of a heads up here. The website is almost up and ready to go, so be on the lookout for that. Hopefully by the time I do another show, I'll be able to actually announce it. WorldBigfootCentral.com. Also, MJ Everything Bigfoot should be set up here on Facebook shortly. You can go look for World Bigfoot Radio, and she's got a swag store. And man, has she got some great merchandise, incredible designs. This woman is, really great at all this sort of stuff. Plus, she makes stuff. You can get Bigfoot pillows and coasters and all kinds of stuff from her. It's awesome. Definitely go check it out. Prices are very reasonable, quality very high. And the last thing would be to bring on today's guest. And I'm psyched to have this guy on here. I've been watching his stuff for a few years now and really enjoy what he's doing. And he's one of those serious researchers. Get out there by yourself. You don't need a team. He's north of the border. He's up in Canada, so you can't even carry a gun around with him if you wanted to. So you got to have extra big set of titanium balls to go wander off into the woods where you know there's Bigfoot by yourself with no gun. And this is one of those brash and brazen and fearless Bigfoot researchers. So let me introduce from Ontario, Canada, Blayne Tyler. Welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Duke, and my honor.
It's my honor having you on here, man. I've been looking forward to this situation to change here where I could start getting some people from other countries on, because I know a lot of them and I've got interviews pending with them. So I figured we'll just hop north of the border to start with, and then we'll go across the ocean and start talking to some of those folks. But man, you've got a ton of great videos up, and let everybody know where your YouTube channel is, how to find you.
Oh, it's under Blayne Tyler, Finding Sasquatch. Either one should bring you to my channel there. And yeah, Tyler, yeah, Blayne Tyler, that's right.
Both with Y's, so you don't confuse yourself in trying to use an I. There's no I in there. Okay, and then you'll find him.
Yeah.
He's got a bunch of cool videos up. He actually has his own little research hub, the Bigfoot Barn, that he does his videos out of, which I think is really cool. Kevin from Glagland is up in the basement or the attic of his garage doing his live feeds from there right now. So it's neat to see people converting these old unused spaces into areas that can actually be serving a useful purpose at this point. So anyway, one of the first things that I want to talk to Blayne about is the whole Bigfoot thing. What's your background on this? How did you get interested in the first place and get going on the whole Bigfoot thing?
Oh, wow. I got to go way back. All right, so for me, it all started when I was a kid. I think it's, I don't know, around 10 years old, maybe 9 or 11, but I just trying to remember going by what was current at the time. Anyway, I had older brothers. When I say current at the time, just trying to remember like something else that I can relate it to, like, if somebody was graduating and stuff like that. But anyway, I was around 10, and my brothers and I went up to a hunting cabin on the southwest border of Algonquin Park, and a friend of the family's took us, and my brothers and that, they were all older than me. They're in high school, so they were out, having a few beers and stuff like that. They got away from the parents, so they were able to let rip a little bit, and but I was too young, so I spent a lot of time hiking. And on one of these such hikes, while I think they're probably sleeping, I went into the woods, started following a game trail on the southwest borders of Algonquin Park, where it's kind of like a reserve for wildlife. So all these hunting camps set up just outside the borders, hoping to pick off relatively tame moose or deer or whatever. But anyway, so I followed this kind of a trail, kind of opening, and then went up to a hill, over the hill, down, and then before I got down to the bottom, I noticed there was these like gorilla-shaped figures in behind the thickets, and like many of them, and some are really big. But if you've ever seen some videos, my videos or whoever else, Sasquatch they cluster together like maybe a chimpanzee pride or whatever they're called. So you can see a few heads and faces and stuff, but then there'll be like shoulders or heads hiding behind other heads or whatever. Like they kind of all congregate together. I seen these gorilla people there watching me, and I was looking at them, and then I just, you become fearful after the curiosity wears off.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
so I just kind of.
What did you think you were looking at? You must have realized even at that age that there really aren't gorillas in Canada.
Yeah, well, you're like, that's the first thing that hits you. Is like, what are these things? Gorillas? What are they doing here?
Yeah.
Right? And then you're like, well, that's not right. And so this is like late October. I think we took off for a weekend, and so anyway, I went back to the cabin, and I don't even think the other guys were awake yet. But that night when I was sleeping in my bunk, I had the bunk under the window, and I was hiding underneath my blankets, but I was peeking out from under them, watching the window, right? And it's like a scene out of the, I don't know, the Legend of Boggy Creek or something, and where you're just waiting for that hand or something to reach in through the window.
Right.
But it was cold, so we had the fireplace on, so everything was closed up. But sure enough, I started hearing shuffling outside the log cabin walls or whatever, and yeah, that was pretty scary. So, but that's all that happened. There was no pound on the door or anything like that, just shuffling outside. So something was out there. Either it was them or something else that was drawn in by the big fire. We had an oil drum stove, and I'm like, well, what kind of moose would walk right up to a log cabin to mooch heat, right? With hunters. So you're like, well, it's got to be something else that's more brazen than that. But so that was my first encounter, and that's I guess everyone's heard of Algonquin Park. It's kind of like Yellowstone, and the national parks out west in the Rockies. My second encounter, when I was a little older, the early 20s, I think, out west in the Rockies, Jasper National Park. I worked up in Jasper at the lodge, and I was down visiting friends who were working at Banff. So on the way back, I decided I had to stretch my legs and go for a hike, which I usually do a lot. Get a lot driving up and down the mountains. Takes forever to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I pulled onto the dirt road. At the end of the dirt road, there was a pile of sand left by the road crews who either were doing repairs or they're just stacking it up to use on icy conditions. So anyway, parked in front of it, hiked over it, and started hiking around counterclockwise around this Honeymoon Lake, which I didn't know the name of it at the time. It's just like a really big pond or a small lake. And on the last quarter leg of it, I started hearing snaps in the woods to my right, paralleling me, just slightly behind. So I'm like, oh, geez, this is a predator, grizzly. And so I kept going and made it back to my car. I got inside my car, and I was looking up through the windshield. You duck your head down, you look up. That's how close I was to the sand. And then for maybe a second, a little less, because they're so fast, this huge gray-brown gorilla head peeked up over and then went back down.
Whoa.
And it was like the size of a pumpkin kind of size head. And I'm like, and it put me in the shock a little bit. I'm like, first of all, the size of it, but also what it was. And so I just kind of left. And I was in a state of shock, and it's probably about at least 2 hours back to the lodge, and it only seemed like 5 minutes. I was just driving, and I don't remember anything else from the trip except just thinking about that big head that looked over.
I know you only had a glimpse of
Yeah.
it for a second or something like that, but that, generally when somebody sees the whole Bigfoot, their attention gets drawn to one part of it, and they sort of exclude details of other parts. And this is one of those times where it's like the only part you saw was the head and the face. Can you describe the face?
Well, the face was like dark, dark skin, the part that didn't have hair on it.
Mhm.
But I think what drew me the most, like, okay, you see the hair come up, but the brow ridge and then the deep sunken eyes where I didn't really get a good look at the eyes, but there's just dark areas where the eyes would be.
Right, like big
And
black pits.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, wow, that's no bear, that's no person, that's something else again. And what I meant to say before, after my first encounter at the cabin was the next summer. My grandfather took me to see Mysterious Monsters, and I seen the Patterson footage, and
Oh.
that's what I seen. That's exactly what I seen. The big, huge, oversized gorilla thing,
Yeah.
right? And so
If you had a name you could put to it, you're like, okay, here's a film of the same thing I saw. Now it must be one of those Bigfoot things that they're talking about in the movie.
yeah, yeah. Except Patty wasn't as shaggy as the ones up here.
Yeah, no
She's
kidding.
so but yeah, so I knew what they were, and I don't know. I guess maybe secretly I wanted to see one, but like at a safe distance,
Yeah, yeah,
not like coming right up to me kind of business, which was it's always a surprise because you watch Patterson's footage or Freeman's footage, and they're at a distance, and then I'm out, and I'm like, well, what's going on? Is everything else all wrong, or is it just a different type of behavior where they're coming right up to you almost in daylight? And I'm like, what's this all about? This is not supposed to happen. They're supposed to stay over there. I pull out my camera, and if I'm lucky, I get some footage while they take off.
yeah.
Not this remaining where they are and sneaking closer and constantly stalking me down, like getting closer and closer as I hike. So yeah, so then that happened out there in Alberta. Um, I think I went into a depression actually. I remember being at the lodge and not caring whether I showered or whatever, anything like that. And I guess it just kind of fit right in with the grunge thing going on.
Yeah, so nobody noticed.
Yeah, no one really noticed. Oh, he must be into Nirvana or Pearl Jam.
Yeah,
So
he's one of them Soundgarden fans or something. He just decided to quit watching. He's getting
yeah,
old.
yeah, yeah. So I got in trouble for that actually. But anyway, I didn't tell anybody. But I started watching for them after that a little bit more. Um, I remember climbing the water tower at night, just trying to sit up there in hopes I'd catch one running across in the light, like on one of the roads or somewhere. But all I seen was foxes and coyotes and stuff. But so anyway, it gets a little better because I don't mind dropping their name, Alberta Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Alberta Sasquatch. They have a report, the exact same MO from the Sasquatch. Woman hiking, hearing noises, woman getting nervous, goes back to her car. She gets in her car, starts to pull away, looks in the rearview mirror, and sees this huge 12-foot Sasquatch walk right into the parking lot,
Oh,
right
God.
where her car was.
Daylight too yet? Jeez, that's really brazen. Wow, that's creepy.
And here's the thing, the Sasquatch, I know I said 12 feet, but how we can gauge the height. She said the top of the sign, which signs are at least 8-10 feet high,
Right.
was only up to its chest.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a big boy. 10 feet at least.
Yeah, so this huge mountain of a creature walks out of the woods right into the parking lot, and she's driving away, and she's horrified, and she's like, I'll never go hiking again if there's things like that in the woods. Why aren't they, she's probably thinking, why isn't anybody telling us that these creatures running around?
We are. You're
So-
not listening.
Yeah, yeah. So, but this is in the early beginnings of Bigfoot forums and
Right.
Bigfoot sites. So there wasn't a lot of information out there. Before that, you had to wait for something to show up in the newspaper.
Right. Or if you were lucky, they'd put out a documentary on the B movie theaters like once a year or something that you could go to.
Yeah. Right.
Or
Yeah,
you could
that's
catch reruns of In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. Go Spock. But other than that,
Yes.
I know what you're saying. There's like a handful of books, and there was nothing else out there.
Yeah, and there's some radio plugs on it every now and again. In the human story, at the end of the night, someone's seen Bigfoot out by the big lake. Okay, well that wraps it up, and just leave you all hanging, right?
Yeah.
And then of course they laugh about it. Families leaves the campground in terror, and the media a happy spin on it at the end. And yeah, so those are my two encounters that got me into it. And I noticed when Freeman got his footage, I always thought, wow, that's really good. And I guess Freeman, I'm just gonna say he probably pioneered habituation, but I'm sure there was other people doing it. They just didn't get a successful footage. But anyway, I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. And I remember I was expecting a bigger outcome over that, and it just kind of faded away. And over time, his footages and acceptance has gained. But I was like, well, what's going on? He just filmed another one after Patterson filmed another one. It's only been 20 years or 26 years. So why isn't this a bigger deal, like for scientists and stuff? And so anyway, that's where I started thinking to take it a little bit more serious and to get into the woods. And I sort of already knew what they liked, what habitat they liked. And so I just had to work on getting over my fear factor from my other encounters.
At least you're, other than the second one following you around, that's creepy, but neither one was like overtly aggressive. So it's probably not as bad as somebody that, like has a log thrown at them for the first encounter or something. They wouldn't want to go.
Yeah, I know that. So there I was, coming back to Ontario. Actually, I went right by your house, probably. Your house, your town. I-90? Mm-hmm. I went by there. I went by Yellowstone, through the Washington Mountain Range. I don't know if I was in the Blues or not, but right near where Freeman was doing his research. Yeah. And I was always thinking, why isn't anybody else filming these guys? I mean, there must be other people who's had like encounters like mine and would be able to recognize the similar habitat that they like. And there was nothing. So I just picked up my first camera. It was a piece of crap from a hardware store. And do you remember how expensive digital cameras were when they first came out?
Oh God, yeah, it was horrendous. Unless you were like working as a photographer or something, you weren't even thinking about getting one.
Yeah, they're like super, like buy a 280 now for $2,000 or $2,500 on sale, and you're like, oh, I guess I'll just stick with my Polaroid.
Yeah, regular old film development seems so much better at this point.
Yeah, and I spent a fortune just shots shooting pictures out west and that. But anyway, when I finally ended up back in Ontario, again, it was the same thing. I'm like, well, why isn't anybody getting any footage? So then I just decided to, when I moved further northeastern Ontario, to take up the quest and try to get some footage to keep the scientists interested in it. It wasn't, there's not, I don't know if you're aware, but there's not a lot of media coverage up here on it, or there's not much of a following. It's just, you might know a few guys in Ontario or whatever. It's kind of underground. But yeah. So when you're doing it up here, you're doing it for the research. There's no real fame payoff, and in fact, it can work against you. Your kids could be harassed at school if you go out and get footage of Sasquatch, running around Ontario.
Much the same thing down here. The ridicule factor is still very high, and nobody's making a fortune off of anything Bigfoot related. There's like a handful of people that are actually able to make a living on it, and good for them, and they're lucky they can. But most of the people that are involved in research aren't really making any money on it. They're just involved in it because they're interested and they want to do it. And a lot of them are just basically doing the research for themselves, which is part of the problem, because some of the best researchers aren't sharing their information. They don't want to be public. They don't want to play whack-a-mole and be the next head that gets stuck up and hit with a sledgehammer. So they're just going to stay private. And, thanks a lot for the ridicule. You're getting rid of a lot of great Bigfoot researchers and evidence that way. Skeptard losers.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing too. You mentioned the money thing, and uh, it's like one guy gets footage, and people can, or the people are trying to make some money or some kind of angle like that. They come in, they try to step all over it because it diminishes them in some way. Either the wallet gets thinner, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It makes them, their credibility takes a hit because the guy one stayed over just filmed one, and they've been calling themselves experts for 10 years, and all they have is a couple tracks,
Yeah.
castings, right? So that really hurts it because the real footage gets thrown in with all the garbage.
Oh wait.
Just everybody fighting for their share of the spotlight.
Yeah, exactly. They all want to be the guy that proves that Bigfoot is real. Well, until the government lets us prove Bigfoot is real, nobody's proving Bigfoot is real. So you're not going to be that guy. And I don't care. I want somebody to prove that it's real. And I don't necessarily want it to be me. In fact, I'm kind of against that. I'd rather have somebody else prove that it's real and take all the heat for it. That's just fine by me. So I'm just going to give you guys lots of clues on how to find them. And when there's lots of people running around that know how to find them and everybody's got cameras, guess what? We're going to start getting more good footage of them. And it's going to be harder and harder and harder for the scientific community to deny it.
Right, right. No, yeah, that's the way it goes for sure. Um, so what I did was I bought that camera at the, I don't know, Canadian Tire, I think. Must have been on sale. I wouldn't have bought it full price, too expensive. So I got this piece of crap 240 P, which was I think the brand new boy on the block was a 480,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like $3,000 at Best Buy or Staples or something like that. And I'm like, forget that. So I look at some maps, and being relatively new to the area, and I said, well, I bet they're gonna be here because look at this terrain, right?
Yeah.
So off I go in my car, and I think I brought my son and his friend along, and we get out of the car, and I go south of the road, and I find a really weird rock structure that's built like in a half-assed igloo.
Wow.
And oh wow! And I take pictures of that, and then I go north on the hydro cut, just across the road, and I find a big X that's reinforced with multiple branches. And I go, oh, this is getting real. So then I go talk to my boy and his friend, say, hey, why don't you guys go wait for me back at the car? I just want to snoop around. It's probably boring for you guys anyway. So yeah, off they went back up down the hydro cut back to the car. Then I pulled out my camera and I started following the signs. And I followed the path, and I could actually see in some of the background footage of peekers and stuff watching me.
Whoa.
And I followed this kind of half-assed, not a game trail, but just where the grass has been stepped on a few times, right into the middle of a shelter, and they're in there.
Whoa.
And I filmed them all, but it's only in 240 crap P.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, they're here. What are they doing here? They're not supposed to be like 100 meters from the road. So then I try to be as casual as I can and pretend I'm interested in this broken log branch, whatever. It was about maybe 12, 16 inches thick. That's a really nice break, yeah. And then I didn't have the courage to turn towards them, like to my right. They were on my right. And I turned to the left, pretended I was interested in the bush behind me, and then I just kind of sauntered out. And then when I got back, when I got back into the middle of the hydro cut, I looked back, and there they are watching me. This huge male's in there.
Oh,
He's
wow.
got the head the size of a small TV or something. I don't know. And there's this female laying on her side with her elbow up, like kind of like how you would rest maybe on a couch.
Mm-hmm.
There was a juvie, maybe my size, a little bit smaller, a gray one, hiding behind that big log that was kind of on an angle broken to make like a structure for the rest of the nest. And then there's a couple of juvies kicking around, and one of them is, about the size of a 2-year-old toddler, just leaning with his back against a tree. And there was something funny going on though when I was in there. Like I knew they were there. The intensity was through the roof. But I'm like, what's going on? I can see them, but I can't see them. You know, I don't know how to explain that. And then we learned later on, as more people got footage, that they can do this vibrating cell cloaking thing, but it doesn't mask their smell when they're nervous. And so I'm filming back, and yeah, that took me 2 hours to film that, to get that footage from my first try.
I bet the kids were mighty bored by the time you got back from walking down the hydro coach.
Yeah, they want to get home and do some gaming.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you're like, come walking up with, you know, eyes as big as saucer plates and your hair standing on end going, yeah, kids, everything's fine.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go do that gaming. Yeah.
No, Dr. Bindenagle came to my house after I showed him the rock half igloo, the T, the X structure, and then he came with his wife Joan, and they seen that footage. And I made the mistake of mentioning I had the footage on one of the Bigfoot forums, and it just got attacked, and it just went into a circus.
Yeah.
So basically they had to kill the thread. And they said, oh, you're lying because there's no way they would have killed you and all this kind of stuff, right? I said, okay, right, fine, okay. So there's a couple of people I was really good friends with. I let them look at the video, and they went on the thread, said it's all true. Everything he said is true. 2 different people that watch it, and they said, yeah, big male, female on her side, juvie leaning against a tree, maybe the other juvie trying to hide behind the support log that runs diagonal. And then it just went crazy. Like, people were angry that I got that. And I'm like, what the hell? I thought you guys would be glad that someone went out and filmed them. And
well,
there was more anger.
Probably part of the reason they were getting away with this is because it was low resolution, so that they had room to go, oh, well, that's nothing. It's, you know.
No, I pulled it. I pulled the video because it just created too much anger that I got the footage.
Yeah.
And I just saved it to show the scientists. And I've showed 2 or 3, and they're like, wow, I mean, but what's going on? Why can you see them sometimes and then sometimes they're gone? And that's before I really started talking about cloaking or whatever. But yeah, that was my first serious effort to go find Bigfoot. It's just the old crappy 240p. You can sort of see them, you can't see them, but yeah. I got other footage. What I did was, as soon as I got a better camera, I went and got other footage, like around the shelters, but I just didn't go marching in.
Yeah, I know you've got plenty of pictures and video where you caught them accidentally, and you know, some of your best stuff is stuff that you actually have caught accidentally, you know, where you didn't even realize it was really there when you were filming it, and then you looked afterwards and went, whoa, there's one right over here, and then you go back and do the comparison shot and there's nothing there.
But there's some of their tricks. I've learned some of their tricks, and you're watching one where you think one is, and then there's stuff going on beside you or behind you, yeah. Right?
They make noise to draw your attention in one direction, and the exact opposite direction is where something's actually happening.
Yeah, that's so what I used to do. I didn't have GoPros. I couldn't afford more than one camera, and I made the mistake of buying a really crappy conference recorder, audio recorder, and I missed out on screams and talk and samurai talk and gibberish talk, and but I thought it was me not like operating it right or not pointing it right, or they were too far away. And then I upgraded to like a Zoom one, and now it catches the audio. But boy, I would have liked to brought you guys the Sasquatch speaking English.
Wow, yeah, that would have been some cool stuff there.
And it wasn't English like us talking right now. It was a mimic. This right. Big. It had to be a big male. The speed, the volume of the voice, and the bass tone in the voice. He did a mimic of a dialogue between 2 hunters, but he did them both at the same time.
Wow!
Like they're trying to drown each other out. He didn't understand that you speak, wait, and the other guy responds. He hit me with both dialogues, and at the same time, like it was all one sound to them. And it was choppy and fast, and I'm like, wow. And it fooled me. I thought someone thought I was trespassing, and I had permission to be on these. This was at a hunting camp. This is in a hunting camp with hunters walking around, deer stands, that this happened. And I thought a hunter showed up, seen my car, and said, "Hey, someone's trespassing." And so they said something loud to spook me or to whatever. So I packed up, went looking for the hunter who might have been a part of the hunting camp, thinking that that was the case. And then I got thinking about it. I said, well, wait a minute, there's nobody here. And that sound came from thickets and not marsh, but boggy grass with a creek going through it. And, it's got thorns in it and stuff like that. And I'm like, and then that's later on, I clued in, wait a minute, that wasn't a person. But it tricked me. I mean, it was so clear and so loud, and the pronunciation was pretty good that I thought some people stumbled across my car and wanted to come in and see who was trespassing. So that was the time I missed out on them speaking English.
Wow, that is so weird. And I've got reports of them mimicking just like any sound you can imagine, and not just natural sounds. They can do mechanical sounds too, really well.
Oh,
When you hear a Harley engine start up out in the middle of a swamp at night, it's not a Harley.
He's got one of those Harley boats.
Yeah, he's out there making the Harley sound. Kat was talking about Kihosa, the alpha male in the clan that she interacts with, will sit on the edge of this hillside and make logging truck sounds when the big semis, the logging trucks are going by. He'll make the same noises back at them. And it's all the shifting and the engine noises and the whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's exactly when they mimic, and it's not a natural sound for the area, or when they whistle and it's like, oh wow, that's a really good blue jay call from a 1,200-pound animal.
Yeah, or when they do daytime birds at night. There's another one.
Yeah, yeah, and wow, so that's a couple of mine. Something that one of your favorites is all my research at the Sasquatch Dunes.
Yeah.
And what I've decided to do is I pulled them all because I want to put them together in one documentary. And there's some things in there I think that you liked when I was in that. I thought it was an abandoned gravel sand pit, and what happened was the dad passed away. So for a time there was nobody really in there. And then I was finding prints of all sizes, mostly the little ones. So unless family was taking their toddlers in there and let them run around in a gravel pit, leaving 3-inch prints all over the place, baby prints, then I guess it was another creature. So, and then I got some footage, something that I tagged the video of the Lord of Sasquatch Dune, this 15-footer on a ridge, and I think you liked that one.
Yeah, and your estimate on his height is kind of conservative, too. A couple things that impressed me about it is that, first of all, you didn't actually see him. You were just panning the camera across the scenery, and you noticed it after the fact. Second thing is that it looks like a big, Sasquatch-shaped shadow, but look closely at the picture. There's nothing there to cast that shadow. And then the other thing is his height. Blayne likes to underestimate this because he went back and measured it after the fact, but this guy was at least 15 feet tall, possibly bigger. And what interested me right away is A, first of all, gigantic Sasquatch, and B, doesn't look like a mountain giant, isn't built like one. It's just built like a gigantically huge, massive Sasquatch. And I know one of the tribes up there has the legend of the Gilyuk, and this might not be in the exact same area, but that translates to the big man with a little hat. And they mentioned about the immense size of the thing. And again, just like the other normal animals, the further north you get, the bigger they tend to get. And this is pretty far north. And, so it was a great capture, man. It's just super cool. And then you found tracks from them afterwards.
Yeah, actually I found several tracks, so some trackways. But they didn't get careless with long trackways, just some cutting across like a corner of the dunes. But I guess the most interesting thing, that's great. I really love that I got that footage, even though it was accidental, panning the tree line. But one of the things I enjoyed as far as this, someone called, well, I was hoping something big would come out of that. Something did big come out of it, but a commenter. But I'm like, so I'm watching my show. I'm a viewer, but in the series of research videos I pulled from there, I came across a little ridge where juvies were using sticks to dig holes, and they were using precise 1-inch holes and then other ones, and there was a couple footprints and some handprints around this 3-foot diameter hole that these juvie Sasquatch were practicing digging with the stick tools.
Cool.
So,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
something you
posted
don't see
that one.
very often. That's cool.
So yeah, so I thought that was pretty important because that was like a big question, right? Do they use tools? Remember, I don't know. It's now it might not be such a big thing, but you go back 10 years, just like you go back to the 90s, and people were like, or whatever, 70s, 80s. There's like 12 Sasquatch, and they all live in California. Remember that? Up in the North End, and that's it, right?
And one of them escaped and ran all over North America and had lots of kids in between then and now. Because there's Bigfoot everywhere in North America, I'm here to tell you.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, yeah, there's that. There's the big. I call him the Lord of the Sasquatch Dunes, just because he's such a big male. I pulled lots of casts. They're not high end like casts, like with lots of detail because they're in sand.
Right. You can't
Right.
pull much detail out of sand.
No. You're lucky to get like some toes and general shape. Maybe if the sand's a little softer, then you get some more depth. But where I was casting prints one time, I guess that's what drew that big one out, because I must have ducked behind some trees to go get some more casting material or something. So he must have got curious and he stepped out from the tree line.
And then you
then
popped up again, and he's like, "Oh, I can't move now. He'll notice me for sure. I got to just freeze and pretend I'm a shadow."
or he wouldn't care.
Yeah,
I mean, that
well,
thing
it
could
is
tip
size,
over a
probably.
bulldozer.
Yeah, no kidding. But so, that's one of the interesting things about this capture is because, man, it's so rare that anybody gets a picture of one of the big ones. They're so good at hiding. They're so good at not letting you get their picture. It's usually the younger, dumber juvies that you see, or you get tracks of, or, somebody gets a half-ass picture of it. You almost never get pictures of the big ones, which is another reason why that was so impressive, because he's freaking huge.
Yeah, and he's built like a bodybuilder too. He's not just
Yeah,
like a lanky one like the class threes, the Gugwe.
yeah.
This thing's built like a bodybuilder, but yeah, like 15, 17 feet tall.
Yeah, that's the thing
And
that threw
he
me
can,
too, because I know there's mountain giants. We've got them out here in Montana, and they're up in Alaska and stuff. They got four-toed tracks, and tracks between 2 and 3 feet in length. So these guys get freaking gigantic. But every time somebody sees one, they never say that they've got that massive bodybuilder look to them like a Sasquatch does. They always sort of describe them as being, more lanky, like a Shaquille O'Neal or something like that. They're
like
built
a
more,
basketball
yeah,
player,
like
yeah.
like a really well-muscled basketball player rather than a bodybuilder.
Right. So this guy was built like how's that guy even move?
He's built like the
I mean,
Hulk, and he's friggin' 16, 17 feet
yeah.
tall.
And when you zoom in, I think I zoomed in, even though it destroyed some of the pixel, you could see that on his chest he had less hair. You could see his kind of dirty gray skin showing through on his chest a bit. So this wasn't a shadow. I mean, the sun's right on him or going into him, and this like you said, he's right out at the ridge beside in front of this tree and the big outline there, and so yeah, that was really cool. And yeah, so then I went back. I actually went over there, but at first I went back after, and I did a follow up to it, and in the follow up, I don't know if it's the same one or just another big one peeking out through the branches. When I was zoomed over there, you could see his head and shoulders at trying to duck down to the 10-foot height, peeking through the big gap in the branches, watching me film over there. And I got that guy on film.
See, and once again, you didn't actually spot him. You caught him accidentally. That's how sneaky the huge ones are.
Yeah, I was just trying to film the area where this big gigantic one was, and they were still there. Or that's their area that they come to watch the activity at the dunes. In this case, me.
Well,
And so I got in the follow up. There's another Sasquatch watching me. So that was pretty awesome.
Well, speaking of awesome, not to change the subject, but we're going to have you back to talk more about these big boys, these mega squatch that you got up there in Ontario on some other show. But this one, I wanted you to bring up a subject here that gets like very little coverage down here in the lower 48 because there just aren't that many of them around. But you got more of them up there. In fact, so much that the Leos up there refer to him as the Bear Man, and of course I'm talking about Type 3 Gugwe, Tugawee, Face Eater, them their Bigfoot, what have snouts on them. And you just had an encounter not all that long ago with one of these damn things, and you rated it as probably the most aggressive encounter you had. And I think everybody here would really like to hear about that one.
Oh, okay. Well, this is gonna scare people if they're avid campers and they don't want to run into wildlife. But this is in a park, like not a park like a camping park, but a park where you just launch boats out of, and I think there's a couple trails. So it's not a park where you go and camp and set up picnic for the day. You wouldn't want to do that anyway. But yeah, so I got into this park and I was hiking. I went off one of the side chute trails and had to go over this little bridge over a fast running creek in the spring, and then in the fall it's hardly any water there. But anyway, went over the bit of a hill on the other side, hiking through a little bit of a lull area, came up on a bit of a hill, and there's this little arch, this little like arch, the thickness of your thumb, tree bent over the trail. So I'm like, well, all right, did it just catch in the wind? You know, I'm always trying to be skeptical of what I'm finding, so I don't just jump to conclusions, but there's just something about it, right? And so what I did was I didn't touch it. I think I went under it or around it. I didn't touch it. I didn't move it. I might have even taken a picture of it, but you know, that's like 3 cell phones ago. But anyway, it's just an arch, right? You're like, oh, whatever. And then I didn't see anything else, so I walked to the end of the trail, and then I started getting headaches from my headband GoPro. I said, oh, crap, this. I'm not going to have a killer headache and ruin the day. So I took the GoPro off, and I started going back, and then I came back to this little arch, and I'm like, you know what, this must be nothing. There's nothing going on in this park. This is just, you know, a waste of a scouting trip. I brushed the arch out of the way, and not 3 seconds later, maybe 2-3 strides, and the loudest wood knock, not just in volume, but power, went off right beside my head. It was so close, and it was above me, that the bark from either the tree or the branch that the Sasquatch Gugwe used shattered onto my head and shoulders.
Hi everybody, Blayne Tyler, come to you again from Northeastern Ontario. Okay, so this is a recount of an aggressive encounter I had on this path coming up. This is my GoPro footage coming up here. I was hiking in, and I came across some arches across the path that could have looked like the wind did it. On the way in, I ducked under them. At the time, I did have a GoPro, but I was getting headaches from it. It was a headband GoPro. So when I reached the other end of this path, I had to take it off. It was just giving me killer headaches. So I was hiking on the way back, thinking that I struck out again. And just walking along, and I come up to this hill that's a minute or so away here. And I'm like, oh well, struck out again. So I geared down my battery on my auto recorder, and my headband GoPro was off. I just put it in my backpack because I was going to go to another location and I wanted to save the juice. So learned my lesson. I've been back trying to get something to support this aggressive encounter with I don't know, the Gugwe, or the ones with short snouts. I just call them baboon looking bastards or whatever. And I don't usually use curse words, but these ones are aggressive. And this is I've had loud wood knocks around me before, But this happened on the way back. I was like 20 meters from the little bridge to the main path where quadders and everybody hikes by. And instead of going around or under the arch, I just moved it out of my way. And crack, right there. And the arch was back in there too. Right there, one of those trees, right to my right. This Sasquatch that was bigger than me because I could hear it. I hear it above me. Smashed a branch so hard against one of the tree trunks that the bark shattered onto my head and shoulders. And what happened after that is I stayed motionless. I didn't want to run. I tried to show no fear. They read your body language. And I don't mind saying this now, but I don't have weapons, but how I got out of that situation was I tried to recall some of the Sierra Sounds language we heard from Ron Moorhead's videos or his discs you can listen to. And I just made some mimicking sounds like that, trying to just back this Sasquatch off. And I could kind of see it in the corner of my eyes, but I didn't want to turn and be confrontational. So, so yeah, it was right in there. The arch was maybe a little further up. And I just tried to sound a little bit like the Sierra Sounds. Actually, I even broke off a little branch, and really tiny branch sizes your pinky finger, and just did some wood taps. And I tried to get this thing to relate to me a little bit, just enough to confuse it so I could get out of there. And I don't know if there's people coming up the path, but I was able to, after 5-10 minutes of standing motionless and just talking and doing little wood taps, bending down, tapping, trying to be non-aggressive, non-challenging, I was able to make it back to my car. And that's a true story from 2017.
So this huge thing now is pissed because I moved the little blockade that the juvie built. He's standing behind me to my right, and I'm like, oh, how do I get out of this?
Oh, Jesus.
And so I'm standing there, he's standing there, and I can kind of, I was kind of chicken to turn around. I didn't want to see him and have eye contact, and then who knows what that would be it, right? Yeah. So I can sort of see something behind me to my right, grayish one. So how do I get out of this? And the time's going by, but it seems like hours. And so finally what I did was I actually stepped off the path, which is a big mistake. I learned, don't do that. Stay on the path. It gives you a little bit of safety, not that much comfort, but I stepped off the path so I could grab a little branch and break it off. And I knelt down and I started doing just really gentle wood taps. Like, hey, buddy, no need to eat me. I can understand you, you know what I mean? Besides the territorial thing that was going on. And then I still felt the intensity of the stare and everything. And then I pulled out the only other bluff card I had, and I tried to recall some of the language from the Sierra Sounds, Ron Moorhead's tapes. And it probably sounded ridiculous, but I just started trying to talk a little samurai or something. And I know, if I would have filmed it, I probably would edit that out. It sounded like a bad Chinese karate movie.
I bet you if nothing else, it confused him because it's something he's not used to hearing. And like, what the hell is this human doing?
Yeah, what's this thing doing? This guy's a loser.
What's this
guy
doing in
a wood?
Tapping a stick this guy... and making weird mumbling sounds.
He's probably thinking, I don't want to eat this guy.
He might be poisoned or something.
Yeah. But that's all I had. I mean, I'll try to communicate it a little bit with the wood taps. And then I did a little, talk like that with some choppy grunts in there. And then I just noticed the tension start to ease up a little bit. And so eventually I just started walking. And this was only like 30 yards from the little bridge that was only another 20, 30 yards from the main trail. So then I was able to make it back to the main the little bridge, and then the next goal was to make it to the main path, and I did it, and I'm like, I can't believe that just happened.
So apparently he didn't follow you then. As soon as you went across that little river, that was it.
Well, actually, hold on. He did.
Oh God.
He just let me go for the moment. And all my gears put away because I thought I struck out. I was 30 yards from the bridge, and then like an open little inlet area, and then a trail that parallels the main trail. And I struck out. Whatever, I'm gonna go somewhere else, save my juice. So anyway, I get back on the main trail that's maybe 5 feet wide. Just it's big enough for a quad. And I'm coming up the little hill, and then there's a right and a left turn. And on the right turn, I smell him coming up on me. The skunk sewage smell.
Yeah.
And he's coming up on me again. And so I turned my shoulder quick, and I just did like a angry grunt kind of thing. Like, what would they do? What would another Sasquatch do if he didn't want you pestering it, kind of thing. And then I just kept going. I was able to make it back to my car. So that's my and you can kind of see him a little bit out of the corner of your eye, but you don't want to make eye contact with those things.
No, that's a challenge. So was this daytime when this was going on?
Yeah, this is in the morning.
So
maybe
was he like actually that close to you that he was swinging this branch, or did he throw it?
No, this was a wood knock. Right above and behind me to the tree I just passed.
Okay, so he actually literally bashed the tree with a stick, and he was standing like within feet of you.
That's right. Yeah.
Good God. Well, how do you know for sure it was a Gugwe? Did you get that much of a look at him that you could see his snout?
Well, I could sort of see him, like, you're moving around, you're going to see a little bit. I was trying to see, well, is this thing going to get closer? But I've never had that kind of encounter with a Class 1. Class 1s, you're lucky if they do huff and puff at you, and then as soon as they get a chance, they leave. They don't chase you or stalk you on a public trail.
Yeah, right.
And like the whole behavior was all wrong for a Class 1, and I've been really close to Class 1s. So, in fact, accidentally, I touched one at one time on a trail when I was hiking in the winter. It snuck up on me and let me punch it in the leg by just purposely strode into my left hand on the backswing when I was trudging along a sled trail. But this behavior of this thing was totally different than a Class 1 Sasquatch. This thing was, I don't know, aggressive, mean, or whatever. And I'm just glad it wasn't like dusk or something. And perhaps he might have heard other people like unloading a canoe, doing a portage. Maybe sounds like that might have saved me. But
if they think there's other humans in the area, they're a lot less prone to try and attack you because they know you might, unless they kill you immediately, you're liable to make noise and attract other humans.
Well, yeah, plus there's a car left there at night when guys who check the, make sure there's no overnight camp, and oh, wow, there's still a hiker or a boater here.
Yeah.
And then everybody starts looking for you. So it must have seen some of that behavior, but no, I've never had a Sasquatch, a regular Class 1, or even, what's the class of Sasquatch that look kind of just like Neanderthal people? Neanderthal.
For my system that I use, that's a type 1, patty type. They look kind of like people with their other faces. Yeah, those are type 1s.
The ones that look more human, I guess.
Yeah, the type 2s, I don't think you even have type 2s up there. They're more kind of chimpanzee looking than human looking.
Yeah, well, this thing definitely, like, I could kind of see it, but I didn't really want to look at it. I had like a typical, I mean, if you describe the bear man, that's what it would look like. If you had to like try to imagine, short snout, kind of thing going on. And these things got big canines, like row after, like not row after row, but one right after the other. There's not just two at the front. They got like a mouthful of teeth. And the canines, in another encounter, just taking pictures, the canines are at least, like on adults, are at least 3 inches long.
See, that's the other thing. I know that you've been around these things before, and you've actually gotten pictures of them. I hope you sent some with, because we want to show people. But that's the common description that I get from other people, you know, especially like up in Alaska and other areas where they actually have these things. That, like, yeah, they've got big friggin' teeth on them. And it's not exactly the same thing as what I saw, but again, that, you know, the type 4 subspecies, they've got the big friggin' carnivorous teeth on them too. And like you said, it's not just eye teeth, it's not just the fangs. There's like
Yes.
a bunch of meat-eating, big, nasty-looking teeth in their mouth. So
Yeah, it's like if you've ever seen some like old cheesy Godzilla movies where fighting like some kind of dog man, I think it's King Ghidorah or whatever the hell his name is. Real, right, like not just like you said, not just that big canine eye teeth, just like one razor sharp big tooth following in a row by others, like slightly get smaller to go towards the middle of the mouth or whatever. But these things are more aggressive, and you know, I go out looking for the class ones, hoping for a beautiful video, you know, maybe like the one where the guy was watching the Sasquatch female eat berries and he stood there, Rose incident.
Yeah, that'd be
And
awesome to
get
get video
something
of
like
something
that.
like that. Yeah.
But what I'm starting to run into more and more are those ones fade and these other aggressive ones come towards you. So I don't know. A little unnerving when you have no weapons or any way to defend yourself. Not that you could. I mean, they could strike so fast if they want, if they're the right opportunities there.
Now, it's interesting. I found a really good illustration of one of these critters from down here in the lower 48, and they of course didn't know what the actual name for these things were or whatever, so they were calling it by, you know, they give it a local monster name like Momo in Missouri, or, you know, the creature of Boggy Lake, whatever. They all have local names for them. This one is the Dewey Lake monster, and I'm going to include the drawing of it here.
Right.
But it's a Gugwe. They just didn't know what it was called, so called it the Dewey Lake monster. So these things, you know, they're not everywhere. They're not even like very many of them, but they are around. And if you go further north, like up where Blayne's at, there's more of them around. And the other thing that's kind of weird is down here in the lower 48, anybody that's researching this or whatever, I've never heard anybody say that they're in the exact same territory as a type 1 Bigfoot. In fact, it's just the opposite. It seems like they don't mix, and the type 1s will actually leave areas that they're in. They'll fight with them, and the type 1s will sort of give ground to them because they're more paranoid of them or whatever than regular Bigfoot. So it's kind of weird that you've got them in like apparently overlapping or mixing territories up there too.
Yeah, I've seen that. Where the class 1 patty type, you know, they look at you, they might try to intimidate you a little bit, then they're gone. But these things actually will start coming towards you if you catch them in the wrong spot or the wrong time of day, or if it's at dusk, or they take up an opportunity. They'll opportunists, and it's just, and I'm starting to run into these ones more often. So I've had to change my approach. I have to kind of do a little bit more long distance squatching to try and spot them before I get too deep off the trail.
Hunting the Gugwe in winter. All right, so short little video here. Going out in the winter. That's my dog Sam there. Anyway, sometimes it gets treacherous hiking in the woods and stuff. You don't know where the rocks are, so sometimes I hike the roads, and because they get cold too, and they like to be out in the fields getting warm. And there's one right there. There's a real Gugwe Sasquatch, and he's watching me watching it. And I got traffic around me, so I don't want people stopping and getting creeped out. What's this guy doing filming or lurking around our property? So I get in, get out quick, get my footage, and try not to set off any alarms with the property owners or whatever. Or more likely with people who hunt and they don't want other people poaching on their property because they want the deer left alone so that they could hunt them. But anyway, there's a real Gugwe with a snout, and there might be a little one there in front of him, in front of her actually. And I got it slowed down and a little bit more enhancement coming up. And this is from a couple winters ago, maybe 3. I posted this when Dr. Bindernagel was getting sick. I wanted him to see it. Um, but I spotted it right away. Sometimes it helps if you're looking through the viewfinder. It compensates for their hollow hair blending in with the bush. Um, but I walked up the road, knew there was a chance of nailing one here. Seen them in this area before, just not the ones with the snouts. And I spotted that female there, and she's watching me watch it, and I've never been able to catch her there again. They learn their lesson fast. They're smart. So this one was a little bit out in the open, probably trying to get warm, and I zoomed in and I caught her. And I think I zoomed around a little bit, seeing if I could catch anything else moving. But yeah, wow, right there. Sasquatch with a snout in eastern Ontario. Okay, so this is just some still shots pulled from the video file there. This was filmed in 1080. And I think I posted it in 480 or something. I didn't know how to crank it up then, but I got a better editor. And there it is, a little bit of contrast. Look at that. Beautiful. Real Gugwe. And here's a really bizarre print, a long toe. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, if you're in an area where you know those things are around, I wouldn't go in there at night.
Oh no, I don't do any night squatch. I mean, I probably wouldn't come back.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. You know, during the day they might let you get out of there, but at night you're really asking for it. And these things are notoriously, you know, they're pack hunters like Bigfoot is. So if there's a few of them around, and lone human wandering around in the woods at night, not armed, you're just kind of asking to disappear at that point.
Yeah, and like what I think I've learned some of this from you is that, you know, I didn't really have a name for them. I was just calling them baboon bastards, looking
Yeah.
bastards.
Yeah.
And that's what they look like a really big baboon.
Yep.
I mean, the snout, like, you know, the beast of seven shoots, that one's got a full snout, but these ones got like shorter snouts. I don't know, like if the beast of seven shoots got like a 6-8 inch snout, theirs are only like 3-4 inches or something.
Right.
But then, yeah, so I didn't really research that. I wasn't, whenever I know one's in the area, I just kind of scrub the area and start again somewhere else.
Smart. Glad you've been doing that. That's what's keeping you alive and turning videos out, apparently.
Yeah. So that's I've had to give up on areas because those things are in those research areas, and so I've had to go, oh well, there's another hot spot I can't go to because these vicious dogmen, Sasquatch guys are running around in there, and they don't give ground.
No, the type 3s are pretty aggressive and territorial. If they decide a territory is their area, they won't give ground. They'll chase you out of it.
Oh yeah, and you know, heaven forbid you're in there with your family and you just get caught. You know what I mean? Like hiking or something like that.
That's what usually scares me. The thing is that most of the time, it seems like people don't encounter them near civilization. Usually it's the type 1s. You have to go a little bit further out in the sticks to, most of the time, you know, what few reports I've got, you have to be further out in the sticks to run into these type 3s. You know, if they're starting to get closer to civilization, that's just really bad news. We're going to start having problems with them.
Yeah, well, you know, I think they follow the rail lines because the rail lines own like whatever 50 yards on each side of the track, depending on how much land there is. They have a lease for whatever. So usually on each side of the track, there's forested areas that they could just follow along the crossover marshes and stuff like that. And so they can just kind of come and go. And I mean, I think, I don't know if you've seen my video, a month ago, I posted a video where our equivalent of a state trooper, OPP, seen one run across the road, not a Gugwe, just, he couldn't tell. He just seen something very big and hairy run across a road on a reserve in northwestern Ontario. And the elder said, yeah, that's probably a Sasquatch, when he was inquiring about what kind of creature was that. So now he says he has an open mind.
Yeah, well, once you've seen one, that tends to give you a little bit of an open mind. I'm just wondering how, you know, given what these things are generally like, I'm wondering if there's, if you're getting missing people from up in that area that they're like somehow covering up and sweeping it under the rug, or if they're having these things like, you know, messing with people that have houses out in the middle of nowhere, not talking about it. Because if you've got, you know, like a decent population of these things in an area, you would expect that there's going to be some weird stuff going on.
Well, actually, that's how I got into the conversation with the OPP. I told him after I did a little, I used a field near my house just to do a little background, you know, how I kind of do with the Bigfoot barn, as an intro to footage or whatever I was talking about. And then that night in the office, putting it together, it was around 6 in the winter. It was already dark. I go to get up to leave the office, and I heard the big pound on the side of my house. It's powerful enough that it shook the picture frames.
Whoa!
And my wife came running down from upstairs saying, "What's that?" And that's those creatures that don't exist.
We figured out where you're at now.
Yeah, so that was a little bit too much for me. So what I did was the next day was I went looking for him. And I started going on the fields, and I went up the road, and that's where I got that. That's how I got that clip of the female Gugwe sitting in kind of relatively in the open in the field under a tree. I don't know if it's. I always say it was sunbathing, but I mean cloudy or whatever, but still warmer out in the sun than it is in the cover of the canopy.
Yeah, and that was the first one that I saw initially. I saw that one and saw the picture and went, "Whoa, he's got type 3s up there. I hope he knows what he's dealing with."
Well, I wanted them to know I could find them too if I had to.
Yeah, they don't like that when you can do that.
To see, but hey, thanks for having me on. It's been really fun, blast talking about the big guys and the bad guys and those other things with the big snouts. And so I'll have to come back and tell you about some of my other encounters.
Right on, brother. We'll definitely have you back again. It's been a genuine honor, and it's been fun as hell to have you on the show. And I know you got plenty of other stuff that you can talk about, so we'll be having you back again here in the future. So thanks for being on the show, buddy.
Oh, you're welcome, and look forward to it.
All right. Okay, well, for all the listeners out there, hope you enjoyed the show, and we're going to try and keep coming to you regular here at this point. We think we got all the tech problems solved. So make sure that you're kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the Pukwudgie. And for God's sake, whatever you do not hug the Wookiee. See you later, folks.